Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hi, it's Patrick O'Driscoll here. You might know me as Pods. I'd like to welcome you to the Adelaide Hills and Fleurieu Farmcast. It's the podcast we produce for the love of farming right throughout the Adelaide Hills and Fleurieu region. And now I'll hand over to Adelaide Hills and Fleurieu Farm Services' very own Belle Baker. Over to you, Belle.
Actually, Pods, no, it's Steve Davis here from the Adelaide Show podcast. I just want to put my nose into every other South Australian podcast going. So, Belle, thanks for inviting me in to co-host this edition, the July edition 2023 of the Farmcast.
Oh, you're very welcome, Steve. We love having you around.
Well, talking of having around, you've been getting around town. We just had all the big shows through your property over the last 6 to 8 weeks. But at the time of recording, you were hobnobbing it with other women in business. What was that?
The Adelaide Business Hub event held down at Port Elliot in the Fleurieu, which was a wonderful event. The room was full, and it was so wonderful to see such inspiring women there. I got to spend time with Andrea, the Small Business Minister. I sat next to her during dinner. We've
got a couple of new services that you're offering, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But I just have to ask this, because if you're listening and you happen to be female and in running a small business, the Adelaide Business Hub does have a number of programs to support you. One of them at the moment is the Women in Business Mentoring, which is being run on behalf of the South Australian small business. And you and I have worked together under that program. And I'm sure if anyone wants to learn more about it, they could give you a quick tingle and you can set them up in the right direction. But you got to meet Lynn Hay, who was the CEO, the Chief Executive of Adelaide Business Hub. She is an absolute dynamo.
She is. I that was one of the best things, was to meet this woman who was in charge of this fantastic program that has made such a difference to our business. It has really opened doors for us and given us the confidence to go ahead with ideas, like the one I said to you when I rang you, Steve, and I went, "Oh, Steve, I've done a thing." Yes. And I could follow that through because I had the support of the program that the Adelaide Business Hub runs through Lynn Hayes. It's invaluable service for small businesses like ours.
And what I love about it too is that, yes, there are women running businesses by themselves, but also on the land, a lot of partnerships between husband and wife or partners. So if there's anyone listening who's a bloke who's thinking, grumble, what's all this support going there? In fact, there are many blokes who benefit from women having this extra support to go up a few notches in their confidence and their wherewithal as they're, doing what they need to do to make a business work.
Oh, absolutely. I'm about to say it takes a village, but, if you've got two people running a business, they often bring different skills and ideas to a business, and you learn in different ways. You've got different training requirements, etc. And it's a wonderful opportunity. I've speak to Pods about all the things that I've learned. A lot of it goes in one ear and out the other. But
that's the spirit.
But actually, I know he has. He supports it, which is wonderful.
All right, and benefits from it too, which is...
And benefits, yes.
All right, there are two new things that Adelaide Hills and Fleurieu Farm Services are offering, which was the main bread and butter of this particular episode. Well, actually, you know what? Just before we get to them, I know this is my second attempt to get to them. We've been talking about Adelaide Business Hub, the Small Business Minister, business in general. Something you've told me recently has been swirling around in my mind. There are, in little Facebook groups throughout the area, these backyarders who are getting themselves a ute or a trailer, chucking in a few tools, and they're going out and they're quoting on jobs on people's properties. And when I see the prices they're coming back with, they are undercutting the proper operators by 50%, by 75%. We're talking a bit of beer money that they're running, which might seem all well and good, but it's when something goes wrong, it's when the wheels fall off. And
that's right.
Because, you guys, I've also seen how you quote on jobs. You run a pretty lean ship, but you're taking into account the proper things you've got to tick off. So there's a lot of insurances, there's probably more insurances that you have to be covered by for the different things you do than I've had hot lunches, and believe me, I've had plenty of hot lunches. What would be the main thing that I guess puts people at risk if they say, you know what, we're not going to support the locals who are going to be here through rain and shine into the future. We're just going to go with this quickie approach to getting our fences fixed or whatever it might be.
So, first of all, we admire anyone who wants to have a go in business, and if they've been retrenched or whatever, and they want to have a go at offering these services, that's great. There are two major risks that we consider, and we consider them too high for us to go down this track. So the first one is safety, that of ourselves and our employees and our clients. In the event that something goes wrong, and post-hole diggers, whether you have a post-hole knocker on the back of a tractor or you're actually using a handheld petrol post-hole rammer thing, incredibly dangerous. Mm-hmm. Now, we are covered through Return to Work SA, and we have the 20 million public liability. Now, if something goes wrong on somebody else's property and that person, any person within the vicinity is injured, I don't have an answer. It's a landmine I'm not willing to go down.
And also, this came up, I remember in one of your episodes, in fact, you made some decisions internally. There's some permapine-style posts that have been used for donkey's years, but we become more and more aware of just how toxic some of the stuff is. Was it creosote?
Creosote, yes.
Creosote. You've actually made the decision to wean your company off that.
Yes, we have.
For the safety thing. Yeah,
absolutely, and the longevity. I think it's one of those insidious things. You don't see the problem today, and you don't see it tomorrow. But in 10 years' time, our employees might be really sick. And where does that start and stop? Yep. But also, when you have creosote fences in highly used areas like horse paddocks or yards around houses where children are, for example, children are climbing on them. Now, this creosote actually causes burns. I get why a lot of horse people want to use creosote, because horses wind suck on the CCA posts and they don't seem to do it on the creosote. There are other products that can be applied post-production to stop that. But for us, we are going through a process of educating and talking to our clients. We do charge a bit extra for creosote if we have to. If we do a small job, we do charge a little bit more, because basically I have to throw the uniforms away afterwards.
It just gets everywhere.
It does. So yeah.
So that's the safety side. And you said there were some other things. Is this related into the sort of guarantee that you give on your work? You don't just disappear into the sunset?
Yeah. And this is another reason why we don't reuse old vineyard posts. And we got asked again yesterday if we would use second-hand vineyard posts for a fence. If we use a second-hand product on a new fence, we can't guarantee our workmanship, because we cannot guarantee the integrity of that product. So when we use posts that have come straight from a manufacturer or a reseller, if the integrity of those is affected, we go back to them and they fix the problem. Yeah. And we would come back on property and fix the problem. Yeah. We cannot guarantee our work if we have not been 100% responsible for the inputs.
Yeah, good point. Which the backyarders, God bless them, come in, do the money, do the job, get the money or a slab or whatever they're charging to do the job, and disappear off to never possibly.
If you're doing your own, if you're repairing your own fence or doing something on your own property, and that's your choice. Yeah, that's absolutely your choice, and you understand the risks associated with that. And maybe you only need a short fix, or maybe it's a risk you're willing to take. But as professional farm fences, as contractors,
sprayers,
we just it's not something we can do.
All right, good. I got that off my chest. And also, with the Adelaide Show podcast, 10 years of trying to support and shine the light on South Aussies who are passionately engaged in things. I mean, we've got to keep our community together, and that means honouring the people around us who make the community what it is. But,
yeah. And one final thing on that, Steve, it does make me realise there are a significant amount of secondhand or used CCA posts coming out of vineyards. We need to find a purpose for them or a way to manage that waste product in the future, rather than them sitting around rotting, doing whatever they're doing, and people being tempted to reuse them for the wrong purpose.
Yeah.
As an industry or as a society, we need to be thinking about how do we reuse that product safely.
Yeah. All right, let's change gears. There are 2 new services that you're offering at Adelaide Hills and Fleurieu Farm Services. The first one that I want to talk about is scanning, because you've been, training. I mean, you've done this in your life before, because you come from that sort of industry where they raise animals for breeding and meat, etc. So tell me, what is this scanning service that you're offering?
Okay, so we are now going to be offering a service scanning cattle and sheep for pregnancy. So I actually originally learnt how to preg test cattle back when I learnt to AI cattle. I reckon I was in my 20s, so it was 1 or 2 years ago. Right, so I've always been able to do it the manual way. I'm not for a second going to suggest that I was.
Hang on a minute. What's the manual? Do you have to? Is this where you digitally enter?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, with a glove.
Of course.
A very long glove.
Okay.
Yes. So you need to go in the rectum to, and you feel over the top of the cervix, etc., to determine pregnancy.
Gotcha.
Now, and it can be accurate, especially if you do it often, and a lot of vets have done that in the past, and they are very accurate, and that's great. But, of course, someone like me doesn't do it all the time, and depending on the stage of the pregnancy can make it harder to determine, because
you might miss something if it's too small.
Well, no, too big.
Oh.
Because after 6 to 8 weeks gestation, the fetus or the calf falls forward over the pelvis. So you either can't get your arm in or your probe, but it falls too far forward, so you don't get the signs of pregnancy like you would at that neat little time frame. Now, what I'm saying there is there are really experienced scanners out there who can they know this, they know what they're looking for, and they have an intrinsic knowledge. But the average person, and I would suggest the average farmer and the average younger vet, is going to have a limited ability to determine pregnancy in a later pregnancy. Yeah.
So what are you doing with scanning? How are you finding
I really need to stop doing the hand actions, don't I, Steve?
It's going to haunt my dreams.
Sorry about that. Yes, so we use a probe. So there is a sensor on the top of the probe, and you actually enter the rectum with the probe instead of your hand.
Aha.
Yep. So then it's like an ultrasound. It's an ultrasound like you would do in a human pregnancy.
Yep.
And that's what scans it. It's slightly different in sheep. You actually don't go in the rectum of sheep. You actually come up on the side of the abdomen, or the
Oh, right.
There somewhere.
And so it's creating an image. Is that what you're looking at, or what?
Yes.
What do you see?
Yes. So you see the cervix, and hopefully you see a few signs of pregnancy, including perhaps an umbilical cord, maybe a heartbeat. You see the corpus lupus, and I don't think I said that correctly. So you see the signs, and generally if you see 2 signs of pregnancy, you can call it. I haven't had a lot of experience in pregnancy testing sheep. I haven't had enough experience to accurately determine twins, multiple births. That is where I want to get to, so that I can really advise stud operators what they've got going on. But that is something that there are other companies that specialise in this that are very, very good at that.
So what's the benefit of getting you in
So I can provide an accurate assessment of whether you have a cow or heifer in calf or a sheep with I can determine a pregnancy.
Yep.
Now, sometimes a multiple birth is pretty obvious. You see 2 heartbeats or 2 umbilical cords. So sometimes it's blatantly obvious, but of course sometimes one's hidden. But so I can determine yes, pregnant, no, dry.
And that itself is an advantage because now we can make provision for any other extra, health needs the animals are going to have and planning for the offspring to arrive.
Right. That's right. So you can't manage what you don't record. You can't manage what you can't see.
Yep.
So, for example, with cattle, if you've had a bull in there for, say, a 6 to 8 week period and you've pulled them out and you've done your pregnancy test, and you might find, for example, that half your herd is still dry, they're not pregnant, then maybe you've got a problem with your bull. And maybe you need to make an assessment as to whether you want to get another bull in and get these cattle pregnant this year, or whether you're willing to go with that and sort another bull for next year. Or you make the decision that you might have a number of dry stock that you are going to put into a different pasture or onto a different feed regime, and then feed them up maybe and get rid of them, sell them off property so that they aren't taking up valuable space and forage on your property at that point, because you don't make any money out of dry animals.
Now, with the dry ones, it might have been the bull.
Yes.
If we're pretty sure it was the bull and it's not actually the ladies in your paddock,
yes.
Is this where you could, or are you still able to do your artificial insemination and
Yes.
they could get some straws, I think they're called, and you can distribute them among the dry girls?
Look, you can. I guess you need to make an assessment of why the animal is dry.
Yeah.
So, again, you obviously want to be doing AI in a dry animal. You don't obviously not going to do AI in one that's already pregnant. But if it has had a pregnancy in the previous year, you can probably assume that something, it might not aside, it just might be something wrong.
Yeah.
As long as your animal's in good health and you've kept up with your vaccinations and your drenches, and it looks on the outside to be pretty healthy, you've probably done your basic checks and it should get pregnant with AI. But with AI, I would always recommend that you do 2 different AIs. So you actually put 2 lots of straws in, but also you always have a cover ball. Because if you need to do a program where you get the cattle to cycle at the same time or at the right time, whatever. So you need to judge that or make that happen. But of course, you might have had a problem with your semen straws. They might have failed, or a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
So you always make sure the goal at the end of the day is to have a pregnancy. Of course, in a stud situation, you ideally want the exact.
You want to know what you're getting.
Well, you've got a plan around it. So yes, but. Yeah, I think the key thing, particularly with our clients, particularly with our smaller acreage lifestyle farmers, all those ones that have just maybe got a herd of 50, is to manage that in a way that is efficient and you're maximising your profit. So in some cases, you might choose to put the dryers instantly on a truck and get them out of here because you don't want to feed them any longer. Or you might decide that you'll keep them, and it's a decision, not something you've left to chance.
Exactly. You're not left reacting to things. You're actually taking a proactive stance, and you're applying a bit of science to what you're doing.
Yes.
And I know that you've got a client lined up this weekend, another one. You're going out to scan about 20, is it cows that you're scanning? Let's just imagine, just briefly, I think we've got a sense now, what the client is going to learn from this. They're going to know whether any of them are pregnant or not, and then if not, start that detective process of working out why not, putting some clues together. Are you able to side saddle with your client in that, or do they then go off and talk to a vet, or is it a bit of both? What happens?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. And as far as segues, it's a perfect one because this particular client, they actually haven't preg tested before. They haven't bothered. But now that we're in the area and they know that we offer this service, they've gone, what a great opportunity. Now, the funny thing is they have one heifer with a humongous personality who they cannot keep in. This thing ignores electric fences, ignores fences of any kind. This thing has a personality bigger than Ben-Hur. It is quiet and it just goes, yeah, I'm just going to go over here today. And they can't keep the darn thing in. And it keeps. So what this client has said to us was, I really hope this thing's dry because it's going on a one-way trip because we can't it's big and it's heavy, and that's probably a bit of a clue that it might be dry because it's just sitting around eating.
Yeah.
So for them, they're looking for that last little key of excuse to get rid of this heifer. Which is fantastic. But so, look, on the whole, when you're preg testing, unless there is no cervix or there's something physically obvious, I'm not going to know why it's not pregnant. It could be any number of things. It's only if a significant number of the herd is dry that you will start to question the bull.
Yep.
But if you have the odd one that's not pregnant, it really could just have been missing when it was on standing heat and the bull missed it, particularly if it's this heifer and she's wandering off some other paddock looking at the birds instead of at the right time being in the right spot. So we work with vets. We're not vets. We would never say what's going on. If it is of concern and they and this happens with stud heifers, your brilliant heifer doesn't get pregnant, and if it doesn't, it breaks its leg anyway. It's a nightmare. In that case, if you really want to understand what's going on with that, because you actually had ideas for genetics and you're going to flush it for embryos or whatever, it might very well be worth doing further investigation.
Yeah. So you become an adjunct to using a vet, because vets, I imagine, are busy and they possibly...
Yes.
Well, they have their own charging schedules that they use.
Yes, of course.
But at least you can start with the binary information. Pregnant, not pregnant. Suddenly, like this client on Sunday, for the first time in their farming career, they'll have visibility to start with. So they're way ahead of the game.
Yes, they are.
All right. Have fun with that. So, last topic that I want to talk about while we're together for the July farm, I've just taken over the Farmcast, by the way, is you mentioned electric fencing with this particularly wayward cow that just...
Yes.
Let's put them aside, because one thing I do remember from my university days, there's a lovely course called Argument and Critical Thinking. The lecturer said, something like extreme cases make for bad law. So this sort of cow, tell me if I'm wrong, pretty uncommon to have an...
very.
Okay, good.
Incredibly.
Let's put them aside, coming soon to a roast plate near you. But electric fencing, this is something that you haven't really talked about much at Adelaide Hills and Fleurieu Farm Services, but it is something that is trending upwards in the farming realm. And is it because the technology's improved and or our understanding of the zap thing, which some of us think, oh, that's a bit uncomfortable, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's got a bit of a dark side to it. But I picked up at your recent fencing days, those sort of ideas are a little bit off the pace. Tell me, why is electric fencing something to ponder, even on small acreage farms?
Yeah. So I think the systems now for electric fencing are a lot more, they're a lot smaller and they're more cost effective, but also you can add on. So you can have your base unit and some and offsets, etc. And you can either have one that's hooked up to electricity or you have it, what's the sun thing called? Solar powered.
Yes. Yeah.
So there are now different price points and different options. They are where once upon a time you would always get your fencing contractor to put an electric fence on at the time of putting your fence up. Now they come in smaller units and you can do it yourself with the right amount of knowledge.
Yep.
The problem then is if something goes wrong, but they're a lot more durable. But one of the key things is we'd like to see more people move away from using barbed wire, which if you were to use plain wire instead of barbed wire and add an electric fence, you get a better, safer system for your animals. So electric fencing is a training tool. It is not a tool of torture. As a general rule, both sheep and cattle are incredibly smart.
Mm-hmm. Really?
I know. Yes. Well, incredible. Absolutely. So, you don't have it turned up to the nth degree. There is no, you're not frying anything here. It is a training tool. They touch their nose on it once, and unless you're this heifer down the road, you go, I don't like that. And there are also visual signals that come with that. So we're about to do some electric fencing out the back of our place.
Yep.
To do strip grazing, which is one of the really good uses of electric fencing. Strip grazing. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But a big part of that is you can actually get, I'm going to call them push-ins, and the really good thing right now is that step-ins, they're called step-ins. I was going to say, Pods has just walked in. He's just here, so I might ask him. But we've got the step-ins that have the orange tops. So it also acts as a visual. So when Dolly comes and touches her nose on the electric fence and goes, oh, I didn't like that, and look, it's orange. When she comes along to the next one, she sees orange. Well, any luck, she'll go, I'm not going there. Right. So there is that visual as well. Now, that you do get these step-ins that have white tops, et cetera, but for mine, I guess you want to go for the lowest common denominator, don't you, Steve, in case you've got a paddock full of these ones that just
Yes, I know. Everything? But I'm thinking of young Dolly here. Yes, so she touches her nose or whatever. Mm-hmm. Oh, don't like that. I see orange. What you've got into my head is electric fences are not about punishment. They're about persuasion. And
that's right.
And it's almost like a psychological effort. You could possibly experiment, if you wanted to, with turning your electric fence off for a while once they've been really immersed in it, and you wouldn't, you'd leave it going, but they probably would stay away from the fence anyway.
Steve, you are an inventor at heart, because that is one of the technologies that is coming into play now. It's Bluetooth technology with virtual fencing. Oh. And it is real and it's happening. Now it's used or trialled or used in dairy herds.
Yes.
So, yes, I know. I don't know enough about it. Mm-hmm. It is not something that we've had experience with yet. But there certainly is the theory that, yes, if you see, the orange step in and they've touched it once and they're not doing it again, there you go. But they do it up north with cattle grids. So up north, when you see on a sealed road, you'll often see white stripes painted across the asphalt, across the road, because cattle have learnt that that's a cattle grid and they can't go across. So they don't. Oh,
my goodness. I haven't noticed them, because when I lived in the Northern Territory, I worked a lot up there, I would zip through at 140 kilometres an hour, which you're legally able to do. And
yes, because there's no cattle grids. Yeah. They're just lines.
Just lines. Okay, so that's down the track. That's interesting.
Yes.
But your electric fencing, you were saying something about strip grazing. What is this strip grazing?
Okay. Look, it's been around forever, but it is starting to be used more frequently, we're finding, with our clients, as they're trying to more efficiently use the pastures they have available. So, for example, out the back here, we have barley growing, and we're using barley in this paddock as a clean-up crop, because we've got a lot of couch grass in there. So we're a 2 to 3 year program to clear up some couch grass in that paddock. This year we've got barley in it, and we are going to segment off parts of the paddock to strip graze so that we intensely graze that area, and then we move the fence and let them intensely graze the next area and close the next area up so it can regrow. Now, dairy farmers do this all the time. You'll often see them. They often have this single electric fence, and cattle are the dairy cattle are very familiar with it. They have learnt well and truly that, this is what's happening today, but tomorrow they'll be released into a new area.
So, yes, my friends at Golden North, they've got cows up in Laura and all that, so they've got the strip grazing, first of all, in the vanilla paddock, then the strawberry paddock, and then the chocolate
Yes.
paddock.
Yes, beautiful, wonderful analogy. Look, and it works, and look, it is an efficient use of the forage that's available. But it because if you have cattle just grazing, they're lazy. They will take the good, good tasting sweet stuff first, and often just trample the rest.
And you're responsible for managing the land you've got and making everything work as efficiently as possible. And this actually lends itself to sustainability too, because you can make sure that you're hitting where there's the good stuff and letting the other parts of the property recover.
That's right.
I love this fact of this mobile electric fencing, the fact that you've got the step-ins that have the colour reinforcement, and you can retrofit electric fencing to fences that exist. If someone wants to explore this, can they just make contact with you and have a little chat to scope out whether it's going to be appropriate for them? What's the process involved?
Yes, absolutely. We're always available on the phone and very, very happy to advise clients on what may work in their circumstances. Quite often we would say, look, we're not sure, we would need to attend your property, just like somebody's attending to our property right now.
Belle, you said you'd finish off with a little bit of advice for me.
Yes.
What's this advice?
Okay. So this is something that traditionally is not done. Generally, when we put in an electric fence for strip grazing, you would start at one end, you would put your unit in one end, and then you would take it all the way up to the other end where you want to stop it and seal it and stop it there, and that's how you would do it. But guess what? You have to get that electricity all the way from your base station all the way up the other end. You need to be putting that base station in the middle of your paddock so that because the further away you get from your base station, the less electricity you're going to have.
Right.
So you put your base station in the middle and you are going to get a better, more electricity out either side.
I'm picturing like a Ferris wheel where you've got the power in the middle of where the wheel has the centre, and then you've got a shorter distance to splay out as needed.
That's right. Yes. So it actually is incredibly logical, but traditionally we all put the unit on one end and we splay out from there.
Yeah.
So that's going to help get you more electricity in the right spot. And the other thing that you just need to, and this is where we really do come in, because we can provide diagnostic help before you throw the baby out with the dishwater.
Yes.
We can come in and help you diagnose what's wrong, but I can tell you sitting here, right now, that 90% of the time your problem is going to be in earthing, that the unit or the whole system has been earthed incorrectly.
Right.
Okay, so that's 101 electric fencing. Happy to help some more, happy to talk about that some more another time, but we're always available to give us a call.
Yep. Well, we might dive into, or you might on another Farmcast go in a little bit deeper, because it just sounds like a smart thing to do in this age. And the fact that you've got other Bluetooth things and whatnot on the horizon, I think we could fence you in to focus on that. The Farmcast, part of the Adelaide Hills and Fleurieu Farm Services enterprise. Hope you've enjoyed listening. I'll back out now and leave you with yourself, but thank you, Belle and Pods, and there'll be show notes on the web page related to this. Just hop on to the website, and which you can easily, here's a sneaky trick. Just go to farmcast.com.au. It actually magically takes you to Belle and Pod's website. Have a look at the podcast there and some articles. There'll be backup articles if you want to read a little more, and they're always available to chat to give you the good oil.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for listening to the Adelaide Hills Farmcast. Belle and I hope you found it helpful. You can leave comments and send questions on the show notes page for this episode, AdelaideHillsFarmServices.com.au. Just click on Farmcast, which is on our website.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.